This podcast is sponsored by Camera Museum of London at 44 Museum Street. Welcome to a Fish Out of Water podcast. This is your host, Richard Lookman. Today, we are interviewing Mizgin Arslan. Mizgin Arslan, you are a Kurdish filmmaker, author, and former journalist or current journalist. I'll start that again. Mizgin Arslan, Kurdish filmmaker, author, and journalist. Welcome to the documentary podcast. Tell us, what is Kurdish cinema to you?
Oh, that's a big question to start. First of all, thanks, Richard, for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm a fan of your documentary podcast. So please keep making more. Kurdish cinema it's really difficult to identify nation cinema in today's world. It's because they're all mixed to each other. There are lots of co-productions. And what is Kurdish cinema is a big question, because are we looking for the identity of the filmmaker or producer, or the location, or like the story, the elements of the story, the characters? So it's really tricky to start with because I have collected and I have written a few essays on Kurdish cinema, and it's like hundreds of pages. And we still didn't have an answer. What is Kurdish cinema, or which films shall we identify as a Kurdish films? But I would say there are some similarity. There are some like similar approaches from directors' views, and in the process of making also. It's like more independent cinema. It's like a guerrilla filmmaking. It's like you will see so many good documentaries because it's all about reality and rewriting this history, or like the reality, because the Kurds are not officially, like there's no officially country, or like it's not, the Kurds are still not very well known by the other nations, by the world. So they try to tell everybody that they are looking for their recognition, I would say. So their films is also kind of, they're trying to prove that they exist, and there is Kurds in this world, and there is a land that they are belong to. So it's really a massive topic to talk about. But yes, there is a lot of like a dynamics in Kurdish cinema to be investigated, to be honest. And I know many scholars, many lecturers are interested in this area. So hopefully we'll see more. We will read and see many films and articles about Kurdish cinema.
And according to your biography, I read that one of the first, you are an author of a book regarding Kurdish cinema called Stateless, Border and Death, published in 2009. Is that right?
Correct. So this book, yes, I think it took a few years to complete, because there are like so many other academic people around the world, and like we were trying to reach them and then read so many, like the thesis, and then we tried to make it. This was the first book ever has published in about Kurdish cinema. And the title was kind of summarizing the whole picture. Like it's all about stateless, border and death. Yeah. You see so many loss, so many absent parents in Kurdish cinema, and it's all about war, it's about conflicts, about really sad stories. But Kurdish cinema is something I think it gives hope to us. So it's seeing blossoming this new filmmaker, independent filmmakers, is really hopeful.
Right. So obviously the question of identity is quite politically charged in Turkey. But on an everyday level, how do Kurdish people, of Kurdish origin, integrate in Turkish society?
You mean in Turkey? How the situation in Turkey is not looking very good. But I'm not the right person who who analyze this for you? So like who gives you lots of details? Because I am a little bit far at the moment. Like I'm not living there in the center of this conflict. But it's still like so many. Like there is no conflict between Kurdish and Turkish people. I would say they live in a harmony, and with Arab people. Because in my village, my village is a Kurdish Arab village. It's like half, and we all could speak. Like I could speak Arabic too. I forget data, but I remember that there was a harmony. Like there was a really peaceful life, and with Turks as well. But unfortunately, these are all the politics, and the politics, the power, like authority subjects, and there is always like one oppression. There is inequality in the world, and in this case, like the Kurds are oppressed, unfortunately, and they are kind of resisting back. And this is like, I think we can see this reflection in Kurdish cinema as well.
You worked as a reporter for Dicel news agency for about 6 years. Is that correct? Tell us what that was like, and how did you get into the world of journalism?
So when I was a little kid, actually, as soon as I started to write, I wanted to be a writer one day. I wanted to tell, I wanted to write. I really have a lot because I was so quiet, I was so voiceless. I was like, everyone see me today will just surprise, because I'm very chatty at the moment. I'm talkative. I know that. I enjoy to talk. But until I was maybe 16, 17, really, I was deeply quiet. And at that time, I think writing helped me to express myself. So I started to write, and I started to actually make living with writing when I was even 11. I started to write poem, and I became receiving the checks from magazines. And from that day, like writing was a big part of my life, but I didn't know how to be, because I was a village girl. And then somehow I managed to continue my study, and I studied biology first. But I knew that this wasn't me. So then, as a trainee, I started in a news agency, and hopefully everything went well. They saw the passion in me, and they gave me more opportunity to get better position in the agency. I became editor at the end, and then the filmmaking started, and then I had to choose. Like I had to go one way. So the journalism was my biggest love and first love. But the filmmaking is now is me.
What kind of stories were you writing about as an editor, as a reporter for the news agency?
First year, for 1 year, I was like reporting from Diyarbakir, so from a Kurdish city. And what interests you is like you don't. Yeah, actually, you have power to choose. So it's like, even though they direct you to somewhere, I always wanted to write stories about women issues, because I want one of the person who really went through difficulty when it comes to this, like human rights, like inequality, gender inequality. So I knew that like being a female was disadvantage in my village. So that's why the women's stories, I think, was
can you give us
central.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you give us examples of the culture that you grew up with, where you found there was a certain stories to tell, or to emphasize certain inequalities that you noticed, and how would you know there was an inequality? Was that part of the culture, or is it something that you're comparing with other cultures, or is it because you felt oppressed emotionally? So can you tell us about that?
From the very start, I think being a Kurdish girl was I was aware that I wasn't as valuable as my brother, so like, or my male cousin. So this will be you never the same. I mean, even it starts with the food. So they eat better foods. It starts with the study. They can study, or they can play as much as they want. But as a girl, like a little girl, you are limited with the number of hours. And I think I resisted from the very start. I was that this was wrong, and this wouldn't be my future. So, and it was the only way to break this was education. So I knew that I had to. There was no way to stay in the village and stop education. I would be married at the age of 13 probably, and the life would be completely different than today. But I have this feeling, I have this kind of really strong feeling that I can do that. Like I don't know where it came from, but at that age I'm still like I'm admiring me at the age of like 10, who resisted to her granddad and who really fought back to get her education right.
Interesting.
So one more I can, like, as an example. So we weren't allowed to wear trousers as a girl. So this was kind of a sign of to be, like if you're wearing a trouser, you could get the power. So that's when, like, during my childhood, I resisted to wear skirts until I was like 20, because wearing skirts was the signal of, like, the sign of the weakness and being woman. And this was lots of confusion about gender. So it took me time to actually make peace with my, like, female identity and like my gender. And this wasn't right. I mean, no one should ever thinking about like you experiencing this. So this is something I think is we all should consider, like some in some region of the world there is like a really big issues with when it comes to the women rights or human rights, and we have to do something for this.
I can see, yeah, and this is the subject of some of your films. We're going to go into that in a moment, but before we go into your films, I'd like to know how you made the transition from editor of a news agency or working within the news agency as in an editorial capacity to making films. Did you meet other filmmakers? Were you involved with the production companies? Was there a good network?
So after 1 year as a trainee, I started to write about the art and cultures, and then gradually I moved into the film only. So I worked as a film critic for 4 years before I made my first film. And during this time, it was the huge new world, and I was really excited to discover, Kiarostami, Angelopoulos, Bergman, and Tarkovsky, and I was like amazed by them. It was really the thing that I have been looking for. This was my thought at that time, but I didn't know how to make a film because I wasn't graduated from.
How did you see these films? Did you see these films in festivals?
In festival retrospectives, there was Istanbul Film Festival, like a biggest film festival, and we had this as a free pass as a journalist. And also I traveled to many, at that time I was invited many film festivals, like in Turkey, other cities, or I went to Berlin Film Festival when I was 24. So this was the first time, and it was just the central of the biggest film festival in the world. And I was so actually new in the industry, in the field. So then I had stories. I didn't know how to make it, but I could watch films to learn how to make films. And this was my step into filmmaking. And then one day I saw a picture of two guys holding hands and walking through a hill. And this was the first picture of a story. I didn't know them. And I think they were my two characters that helped me to be a filmmaker. And this turned into a film called The Last Game. And I made this film. It was my first film set. It was for the first time I'm using a camera, but I have a very, sportive crew, small crew, and everyone was really helping. We were so excited. And this film got, I don't know, like so many awards, 13, 14 awards in Turkey, in America, like in Morocco. And then I just said, okay, then it was all encouragement, you know, like seeing other people's receiving your ideas or receiving your view. And I think from that, 2006 was turning point, and I continued filmmaking.
How were you able to make a living at the time?
I was working full time as a journalist for a long time during that. And then I started to work. I always had a day job because I believe that like filmmaking, I earned money from filmmaking and from my films, but it is never gives stability in life. And we have to have a regular income. So I always had a job. I worked as a journalist first, then as a book editor in a publishing house, and then as in a film house as a directing assistant. But it was again regular job, like regular income. Because I'm not coming from a rich family, even though if I was coming from a rich family, I think everyone should have a regular income from film industry or somewhere else to be able to plan your life, your day. This is something I think I try to manage.
Tell us about your first feature documentary, I Flew, You Stayed. And can you tell us what the title was in Turkish?
In Kurdish is S04 Tumayilici. My grandmother says in the film, there is a, like she says, Eskunci, Tukunci, Sertakti Gefrinci, S04 Tumayilici. It means I am the same, you are the same. We are all on the bakery's hand. You flew, I stayed, or I flew, you stayed. So we in this story, you know, there is one character who are absent, and we are trying to complete his picture by looking at the people who stayed behind. So there are women like his mom, his daughter, me, his wife, and his sister. So from four of us, like, because I think it's not about, the story is not about him anymore. It's about us. It's about what really happened to us. And that's why I think I found this title really like appealing. Is like, because he flew, we stayed, and let's see what happened to his state.
How did you get the courage to look for your father?
I didn't. I had to. I really struggled because I had to be brave, and I'm not brave enough. I'm not like a very super brave person. I wish I was. But there was a point that I couldn't continue living that way. I had to answer these questions, and I had to make peace with him. I wasn't mentally stable at that moment. I had lots of questions, and I was still like little girl, like this, the little girl who kind of longing for his parents. And I was 28 at that time. And 28, like when you are just approaching to 30, you just want to deal with things in your life. You just want to get over them. And also there was one meeting in Yerevan, and in the film, like, you know, the beginning of the film, there's like audience will understand better what's happening there. I don't want to give lots of details, but there was like, after meeting another girl who claimed that my father is her father, there was no way to stay with that questions and with this darkness and with this ambiguity. So I had to find answer. I had to go that journey.
Do you think, yeah, and it's definitely a very, very impressive film and certainly worth watching. I recommend everyone watch the film. You moved to London. Do you think that was a step back for you? Because you had such an incredible career, and But we'll come back to that. And I just wanted to ask a couple of questions about I Flew, You Stayed. I think it was the storytelling is incredible. The cinematography, the editing, the music. How did you find your crew?
For I Flew, You Stayed.
Yes.
There's no big crew. It's only me and my camera woman, Özay. And I wanted to have someone I can share with this very intimate journey, and we want to film it. We didn't know if it will be a film or not. I just wanted to have a camera because the camera was like a power. So because it's like having a gun, really. Because I still believe that it's really empowering you, and it's just giving it gave me courage to do this journey. If there wasn't a camera, it would be really difficult. So with Özay, we went there, and then the editing, like make the post-production stage took longer, apparently, because we didn't have a sound person. We didn't have it was only her and me, and it was very amateur with the equipment. But then I found a producer when I have these rough footages, and I made the first rough cut to show some people, because I knew that I wouldn't make it by myself. I needed some other people's help and support. And still, filmmaking is not one person. Even though you're making a personal film, it's like first person films, but you still need people behind the camera. And then I met Hüseyin Karabey. He was a well-established Kurdish filmmaker in Turkey, in Istanbul, and he liked the film a lot. And I think with his involvement, the film get a better stage, and we had like one French editor, and yeah. So it took quite some years to complete the film, and now I understand why.
Okay, and the film went on to win the Turkish Association of Film Critics Documentary of the Year in 2012, I believe. Is that correct?
Right.
How did you feel when that happened?
I wasn't expecting to get this award, because this is one of the biggest awards of the year. And the film critics is like, I think 80, 90 film critics association is really big. And there are so many internationalists. There are so many people who are not very keen on, Kurdish stories. But somehow, I think we did something right with this film, that and I personally, this is where I stay actually. We stayed in in a human story. Like we did that. It wasn't a propaganda film. It could be if another director or another producer could easily make a propaganda film to for the Kurdish movement or whatever. But we wanted to stay in the border of the family and feelings, and we tried to catch audiences' feelings. Like I really wanted to touch the audience's heart and make them feel what I was feeling. So and I believe with this award kind of proved that not only Kurds or not only left vision people, or not only anyone can feel and can relate to film. It was great. I really felt good, and I think this was one of the best moments of my filmmaking career.
And hopefully not the last.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is that the film had universal themes of family, longing,
and love, of course.
Yeah.
I think it's all about love. It's the films, like we're making films to, this is the mere, what I believe is like the love, whatever happens, the conflicts, the poverty, hunger, there are lots of terrible things happening in the world right now. And it's really painful. I sometimes I can't breathe. It's really too much if you think about them. But then there is love in the world. And we know that even the people who live in poverty or in conflict, their hearts are full of love, and they love someone, and they long for someone, they miss someone, and this is all connecting us. Like they have families, they have lovers or whatever, and I wanted to stay in that border. So I want to make films about love.
Fantastic.
But not only romantic love, I mean, in all aspects.
Sure. And I believe you also have worked on fiction films as well as non-fiction. And you moved to London in, I believe, 2013. And how did that change your life? And was there a strong motivation to move? Has it made things better or worse? Or is it a new chapter?
So actually, you said I was touching in like a red lines of Turkey, and I knew that I wouldn't be. I mean, I wanted to make this film. I really had to, but I knew that it wouldn't be the same as a life, because it was like revealing my secret. Until that day, no one knew that my father was a Kurdish guerrilla, and from that moment, I was the daughter of a guerrilla that will never ever go away. Like this was proven by films, by articles, by headlines, and I was revealing my identity. So, and I was detained with my camera woman for 4 days, and the life from that moment was really. I was like, I really wanted to live in Turkey until very last. Like I never thought leaving Turkey, because I knew that everything is there. Like it's my field. It's the where I know very well, and I want to make more films. But after this detention and using the security feeling, because I knew that I wasn't safe there, I wanted to leave. So anywhere in the world, with like anywhere I can work, I can read, I can eat, and and can make film would be all right, like anywhere in the world. So at that time, I got invitation from London Turkish Film Festival, and University of London, Bedfordshire invited me for a talk, as a guest speaker for my previous documentary, A Fatal Dress, Polygamy. And like there was some other, occasion that all matched at once. And then I traveled to London, and I found the editing job in a film in a media company. And that was it. I just thought, okay, London is safe, and let's stay here for a while. And then I loved London, and I wanted to stay. But of course, my film career has changed a lot. Now I'm at the. I think I'm still struggling to get back to the film, like this actively filmmaking life. Like when you have two projects in development, one in film festivals, and one you are making. Like this is what my life was in Turkey, and here I'm always in development, and it's never developed. It stays at this stage. So hopefully this time I'm determined to make it happen.
Why I'm going to ask you about your the development and how you make your films in a moment, but I'd like to know if there's anything you can recall specifically during the 4 days of detention in a prison in Turkey. Is there a moment you specifically remember that you want to tell us in terms of the feeling or the sort of the ideas that came in your head, or what was it like? Were you in a locked cell on your own, or were you with other prisoners, or was it a different? How did it look like? And can you tell us a bit more?
I don't want to remember that much, because of course it's the least pleasant place to be. I don't recommend anyone to be any Turkish cell or prison. It was like a small cell. I was sharing first with one person, then with two more people, and you didn't know if it's night or day. We heard that it was snowing outside. It was February, And I love, everybody loves seeing snow. So we missed the snow. But we could miss more, more years. So hopefully it was only snow. And they keep asking you the same question, and they keep manipulating you, and they keep saying like I think there was a moment when they say, look, we are not torturing you. Look, we are like, they were kind of trying to say that they are nice to me. They actually they didn't torture me. That was true. But even saying, look, we are not torturing you there was a kind of mentally torturing, because this means we could do this. And also the very disturbing question was, they kept asking me, oh, did you find your father? Or did you find your father? So this was really still making me emotional, like remembering, because this was like touching your wound. Like, did you find your father? Because you went there to find your father, and now look where you are. But it's in the past, yes.
Okay. Tell us about development. How do you develop films and stories? Now that you're in London, tell us about how you developed films in Turkey when you were in Turkey. Why was it easier?
So in Turkey, and of course my life has changed, because I have 2 small children at the moment, and I think being a mother has changed things dramatically. So usually you are, the stories are outside, and you have to be outside, and you travel a lot. Like, I was traveling all around Turkey, not like, I was traveling to my home city a lot, with like someone for work, or sometimes just for location, or like there was always a reason to travel. And I think traveling is the one way of finding a story. And in London, this travel is very limited.
You say traveling is one way of finding stories. Were you in a bus? Were you in a car? Were you talking to people all the time? What do you mean?
It can be any vehicle. It can be like train or like bus, but you need to meet people. You need to be open these encounters around you, and like you need to go, if you are interested in village life, like a woman life in village, then you have to go to village. You cannot just like by reading books or like newspapers or poems, or this is not the way to find a real story or also access. And so traveling to these villages helped me a lot, and meeting people. And I am a good listener. I enjoy very much listening. Like, I can listen someone, I kind of feeling like this pleasure of listening. And so someone can tell me, and I can ask like thousands of questions to them to listen more. So this is, I think, one of the advantage of like to finding a story, because if you're not a good listener, if you're not enjoying talking to other people, if you're not a good then it's a bit difficult to find intriguing like the stories. Because you have to listen like 100, you have to listen so many people to find the right one.
What to you? What is an interesting story? What attracts you to people's stories?
The way they express themselves. Storytelling starts verbally. So the way they tell the story, the point they start the story is crucial. So, we all have one story to tell. So where would you start your story? If I ask you, Richard, where your story start, if you tell me your story, where would you take me? What date, what age, what image? Like, tell me this, tell me the scene, tell me the setup, the objects, everything. So this will, if I talk to you, then this will give me, okay, this is, and also, of course, turning points, twist, and concept. Like, what is the main concept of your story? Because I think we all care about something more or less. Like each person will have like they, I mean, this is all about how, you know, the if you go like psychologically, it's what we are lacking is what we are looking for. So it's if you're lacking love in your childhood, like early childhood, you will be looking for love or your life. Or if you I mean, this all it's very obvious to anyone. But if you have had like very unhappy childhood, then you will be interested in children's stories, like this kind of things, like, you know, this, so this the people the way they tell you their stories and the way they express themselves and stress things, I think the key.
You've obviously been thinking about this. I mean, this is have you been reading any sort of deep thinkers with regards to this, what you've just told us? I mean, are you reading
Not recent.
or
Yeah,
are
not
you reading sort of Greek philosophers or poems from the Middle East? Do they all touch upon these subjects, right, that you talk about?
not recently. I'm not like it's really limited my like reading hours and books, but I was doing my PhD in Turkey in media and cinema studies, and at that time from Bakhtin to, you know, like Derrida, Deleuze, like we went through, like we really it was like years of like living in this like bubbly world, and it's not real. It's all about, you know, the question and finding answers. This is also a bit, you know, if you go deep, it's a bit dangerous because you may not find way out, you know, you may just stay there. And it's filmmaking is between these two, between real life and this like I would say life in a bubble. Yeah, but I think I'm interested in storytelling and the way we narrate the story, narration. This what like these are the key. So whenever I watch a film or like I listen to the story or read a book, doesn't matter. It's all the same. How they tell their story and where they start, how they develop, where is the turning points.
We're going to go into that. We're going to go into that. So we're going to take a 3-minute intermission. I'll send everyone a link through Zoom again, if that's all right. We'll be back in a few minutes. Thanks. Okay. Resuming from our intermission, thank you, Mizgin. We're going to ask you more questions about storytelling craft. And I'd like to picture yourself back in your village. Now, can you tell us a bit more about your village and how poems and dreams and people influenced you?
My grandmother was a storyteller. She was a really good storyteller. She had stories. She told me stories like almost every night. So this is kind of my first story meeting with a storyteller and with my first love of stories. And you know, when you listen to stories in this voice, you feel safe. And I'm telling a lot of stories to my children, and you can see that, like how they feel happy in the stories. I think it's kind of this is the biggest, like the most beautiful part of our job, you know, like making films to make other people feeling good. So I want to say something here. In one of my experience with British audience, so we're in a film festival here, I just got this reaction that they felt sad when they watch my film. This is not what I wanted, but feeling sad is not something bad, it's not something negative. At least you are feeling something. What is like scary is not feeling. And this is what is the most common things in the world today. You know, most people are not feeling anything. They're not feeling sad or happy or like a shock or amazed. They're not feeling. And I think what, as a filmmaker, we are trying to make them feel something. Like even like feeling sad is a feeling, really. So yes, my grandmother's stories were scary, sad, happy, all kind of emotions you could feel. And
That sounds like the 1001 Arabian Nights, the story of Shahrazad. And now obviously it's not the same, but it sort of reminds me of that because I have very limited knowledge of the area and its history and its, culture. But can you tell us one story
Oh,
that your mother told?
stories, they are usually long stories.
Can you sort of shorten it?
But I won't tell you a story right now, but I can say that the stories are, that in Kurdish culture, I mean, the Kurdish cinema is definitely taking advantage of this verbal culture, because we don't have written materials, like it's not officially. So everything was verbally carried by people. And that's why, like, when there is no TV, when there is no iPad, when there is no like lots of toys, like lots of opportunity to get amuse yourself, stories are there, and you just fell in love. You just like you feel very lucky to have storyteller in your home. And I was raised by a storyteller.
How do you develop stories for your films, for your books? You were talking about the storytelling craft. Is that something only you do, or are you influenced by others? And can you go through the process? And how has that changed when you arrived in London?
So there are a few questions here. I'll I'll divide them. So the first one is the storytelling. Okay, so what I found, like what influenced me, is the Kurdish tales and also Greek antique theater. So I found kind of there is similarity between them. I mean, there is similarity between all stories, and they are not. They are all very similar, and there is no new stories in the world. There is a new way of telling a story from today's. If you look at the stories from today, so there is a similarity between a Kurdish story called Hepinarchy and Oedipus, and there is a parallel. Like there is always one hero, and this hero has to leave home, and he has to leave his parents because no hero can live with their parents. And there is always a journey. It has to be a journey. It has to be obstacles. So there is the same pattern you can see, like the old tales. And I found the tales and like this pattern in tales are really like really inspiring. And this is like when I'm creating or I'm developing a story, I keep this structure, this like classical structure as a guide. And I found it's always when there is a box. This is and if you all want to know what is inside the box. So if you start the film like with a box, there are lots of way of telling, but they are all existed and they are outside there. So the way is which one do you want to use it? Which one is appealing to your way of telling a story? So I definitely use as I said, like the antique theaters structure, and also like the Kurdish tales are really good guides to follow culturally also.
Can you walk us through a classical structure influence in one of your films?
So there's if you look into I State, so it opens with so we say this inciting incident happens just from the start, and the character with this inciting incident, which we don't tell what is it because it's a surprise in the film, has an aim now and has to find out her father's grave. And so this is the main line, but there is also lots of parallel lines in the story. And also each character is carrying its story in the film. So these are all, as I said, like proven and all has been used many, many times. And in Hollywood, in European films, in Chinese films. So I think that we are all following the same structure in a different way. But I really found this, as I said, like the stories in Middle East, the Far East, not the like not the contemporary art, not the contemporary stories, but more ancient story are that are hidden. There are some elements that we should be focusing on there, I believe. And my intention is to combine this like the different words together.
At some point, you're connected with Blue Arts. Is that your production company that you set up?
Yes. So when I came to London, I as well as working as a video editor in a company, because it's really establishing in a new country is very hard, financially and also emotionally, and in many other aspects. It's really taking time. And at that time, so I was like, the Blue Arts was I'm still like as a self-employee, I'm offering like videos, photography, and also I'm regularly running some script writing course. So with this, especially like some groups, like I have one group, women over 50s, like usually retired women who wants to change their career, who are who worked like full time, and now they have time and they want to find something else in their life. Or like I had a group like so the different. I had different groups, and I tried to teach them how to write, how to develop their stories. So Blue Arts, yes, is my kind of, as a self-employee, I use as a roof, and I offered some other
I'm very interested
services.
back to the storytelling, and I think part of obviously time is one issue, but another issue is that the culture in the Middle East or in Turkey is completely different to the culture in Northern Europe, which is much more stoic, cold, sort of Celtic, if we look at the ancient tribes, then mixed with some Saxon and Anglo. And do you understand British culture? Is it a totally alien to you, or not? How does that?
I started to understand, and actually this made a big difference. Sometimes like it's like an enigma. It's really difficult to understand, like why these people behaving this way. Like I don't have any negative reaction, but I just found it different. Like we enjoy company. Like if our house are full of people, this means you are really rich, you are really happy. In my culture, we never prefer to stay alone. Like there are moments we want to stay alone, but there is a problem if we want to stay alone. So this is like a joy of the life, and then sharing. Sharing is a really like a biggest part of my culture. Like like the house are like they have really big pots to make food, and the more they share, the more they feel happy. So of course the Western culture is completely different, and I am still like having difficulty like to understand, and I'm trying to find like what's the goodness in this, like who is benefiting, who is getting benefit from this. Like are they really happy doing this, or is this the way the only way they know? But of course, like as anyone coming like from the Middle East, from Mediterranean countries, it's a big shock seeing people like in my like culture, in my like a friendship in Turkey. I know you must know this, but you call someone and say like, I'm coming to you, like to your house, and you never get an appointment, or you never say, oh, Friday afternoon I will call you. So this is nothing happens. Like this is something really interesting and alien to me, or it was alien. I'm now get used to, but I'm still kind of like I'm trying to find the right word for this. Help me, Richard.
Okay, you're you're still attempting to understand and adapt.
Yes, right.
Okay. So within this culture, what would be interesting for you in terms of making a film here?
This is my question too. So since the first, I think first I have been asking the same question. So me, I mean, I have three different me, you know, Kurdish me, Mizgin, like who speaks Turkish, and Mizgin who try to speak English, you know, like British me, because I have been here now about 8 years now, and it's not a short time. Actually, it's becoming like a lifeline. And so Mizgin, like in London, what is the story interests me? Like what story I want to tell here, and this is it's of course like at every stage of your life bring their own questions and bring their own like struggles, and the films are about like dealing with these struggles or bringing this conflict to the surface. So we all have different conflicts in with us or with our surroundings or with our family, and of course this will be reflecting my films that I'm planning to make, or I'm making in London.
There is a lot of talk about diversity and integration and sort of communities in the UK. Do you think there's a film there to be made?
Regarding this, I have to say something. In Turkey, I was feeling like I was Black of Turkey. And this was clear, like we were Black of Turkey, and we knew where to stay. And if there was a sport or if there was a like diversity, you know, like scheme, this will be for us. So as a Black of Turkey and coming to England, we are not Black in this country. So there is no, and we are not white either. So they're not white, not Black, not like, there is no space for like Middle East or like Kurdish filmmaker in film industry in the UK. And this is, I think this is my biggest question. And this is going to take time to establish this.
Yes. I mean, do you think, as someone originally from the Middle East, that you need to sort of adapt to ways of doing things, or are you happy to bring your own culture, or are you wanting to mix your culture with the British culture? And what is the British culture to you, as you came here 8 years ago?
So not English, but British culture is so interesting with this all diversity and with all our neighbors like Indian, Jamaican, and you know, Nigerian. So this is bringing something really interesting and something really strong. And this reflection of this in the UK cinema it's very limited. It's very under rated, I would say. It's really because we need to see more of this, and including Kurdish people, because Kurdish people also bringing their culture. Everyone is bringing their culture, and this like the harmony of cultures are something beautiful. And it's not about English people anymore. I don't think like anyone will say that this is about them, because they're adopting this too. It's not about integrating us into culture. They are about adopting, integrating them into this big culture, because this is the biggest picture right now. And so if we make a film about this, I think me, like as a Kurdish filmmaker in London, I am developing a feature film about this, which was calling Neighbors, and about two female neighbors who has to share one corridor, and there was a fight how to use this corridor. So I developed this story, but I unfortunately it's stopped at some point. But I think this kind of stories, like how we share this land, this beautiful land, and how we all love or trying to create a new life here all together, like with this all diversity, with this all beautiful different colors.
That brings me on to your future projects. Can you tell us a bit more?
So my future projects is my dissertation film, and I enjoy saying this because you have to make it. there is no escape. Like you cannot excuse, you cannot say, oh, I didn't have time or this. So this is one of my motivation to enroll to the digital documentary in Royal Holloway. I really wanted like this mentoring, and I'm so glad I did. I'm happy with all of my lectures. So my dissertation film is about actually it starts the point where I-U state ends, and so there is a confrontation with my mom at the end of the I-U state, and it's not an easy confrontation. And this is actually, in fact, it's just the beginning, because it reveals so many new facts about our family history. And the day, 10 days actually, like a few days before she left me and took my brother and went to Syria. So in that films, I am kind of, again, investigating the three characters, again, female characters, as I really enjoy to work with and travel. So three female characters, my mom and my grandmother, and how they evolve in their stories, and how this, again, like a women rights, fairness affected their life. Because my grandmother, I just found out that my grandmother died when she was giving birth to her 12th child at the age of 39. And this is something really affected me. And this is just it's just one tiny bit information from the whole. And I want to find out more about her life, about my mom's life, and how this generation has changed during time.
Fantastic. Very interesting. We look forward to hearing more and seeing more. Has anyone got any questions here in the audience? Mizgin, Arslan, it's been a pleasure. And we look forward to seeing more of your films in the future. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Richard. That was a long, so we finished, right?
Yeah.
That was a long conversation.
Sorry, yeah. I was trying to dig in a bit, to
and
open up,
And I'm not someone difficult to interview, isn't it? It's because
yes.
I interviewed someone yesterday for London Kurdish Film Festival, and she's answering like whatever you ask her, say yes, this is really important, and like very short and very like she's not telling much, she's not telling anything. And I said, oh, I am not like her, I really, you have to find someone who really enjoys telling. Or
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's interesting to speak to people who don't like talking much. But yeah, I mean, do I call you a former journalist, or you're still a journalist?
Yeah, former journalist is fine.
Former journalist, okay. I'll call it award-winning, Kurdish award-winning filmmaker. And I assume we're going back to uni from the 25th of April.
Oh, okay. I talked to Alex about some like face-to-face classes, because I need help with the Photoshop, and she said that she will be arranging some classes anyway.
Oh, great.
For us. So hopefully we will be going to the campus. And
oh, really? Going back to the campus?
Yeah, I mean, she will tell us more about it, like what class is about. Yeah. Nice.
All right. Okay. Thanks very much. Yeah, the interview I'll post on the MA Digital Doc site, and it's all the rest of the podcasts are available. I'm interviewing someone else next week, Monday, and he's I think he's a Scottish producer, director, and he's won an award recently, possibly a BAFTA or a nomination for a documentary about a cyclist. So it's very sports. Yeah. So I try to get.
Yeah. No, good. It's really going well.
Yeah.
I wanted to remind you that don't forget to cut we to listen that part, please.
You did say you kind of got stuck.
I'm a little bit worrying about. I'm worrying about my English and pronunciation, because I know some words are not quite right, and I don't know how they sound. I probably when I listen to them, I will say, "Oh, it's like."
Yeah, you will hate it. But to be honest, I enjoyed it a lot. You gave us lots of scope, because what you said, especially in terms of oral storytelling, is quite interesting. We don't hear that much. I mean, no one. If you speak to a British filmmaker, they won't tell you these things.
No,
they'll say something else.
Yeah,
and the influence will be different, but it may be the same also, because they take stories from
but in Africa, but in Africa, because we don't have just like written, is it, how would you say, I forgot the term for that, when you don't have this like sources, and so in Africa, in Middle East, they will understand what I mean.
Yeah, but it's the same here, because you've got to remember the books weren't published. Before the book was published, it was oral history everywhere around the world.
Yeah,
it was oral. During when Jesus was around, it was oral. Okay, you had someone carve on a stone or something, but most of it was. Okay, I'll let you go. All right, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, my it's all right. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, Sebastian.
This podcast is sponsored by Camera Museum of London at 44 Museum Street. Thank you for listening to a Fish Out of Water podcast. This is your host, Richard Lipman. Should you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please get in touch.